Recording works without them.
All right, we're all
in the
set.
ceiling. All right, everybody, welcome. This is the Monday, May 20th Select Board meeting of Webster. And we are opening the meeting at 6:34. Standard Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so roll call of board members. Dave Hemingway, Chair of the Select Board.
Milo Herrick, Norman Blake.
And I will note that for a little bit later in the meeting, we are joined by the Hopkinton Board and Town Administrator as well. Normal meeting rules and procedures we've started going with are basically classroom style. So please raise your hand if you want to be called on. Don't interrupt people. If we have larger events and or crowds, we will alter those, but it does not look like we will need to do that. For announcements, do we have any specific announcements to make? I do not.
I think there's a public supper on the 25th and a plant sale here in Webster.
Awesome.
25th, that's a Saturday, yeah, it's the 25th.
25th.
Or Saturday, whatever the Saturday is. What's the next Saturday?
That's the 25th.
25th, okay.
Awesome. All right. So as we now have everybody here, rather than moving forward with our own agenda beforehand, we will move on to our first appointment, which is the Hopkinton Select Board regarding transfer station fees. So I'll recognize Neil, and please introduce or have everybody introduce themselves.
Sure. I'm Stephen Whitley.
Ken Tram.
Sabrina Dunlap.
Jeff Donahoe.
Thank you for coming. I also recognize that we have the transfer station or DPW manager here as well. Is that the correct title? Probably not.
Director of Public Works.
Director of Public Works, thank you. So, let's go ahead and jump in. Let's see. So I won't go over different rules for this because of the people that we have here, but after the board discussion's completed and we go through any public comment that might show up, then we will make a final decision and a motion to bring the result to public hearing. That is my plan to have us do. So, the overview, waste continues to rise, recycling continues to fall, and combined with fees staying the same, the costs to the taxpayers continue to increase. We are here to fix this. What tonight is not discussing is important. We are not discussing green bag implementations, green bag enforcement, green bag pricing, etc. I'm going to go the short version of this, but we're not going to go down these methods, including sticker enforcement at this moment. Everything that's here and many other topics are extremely worthy of discussion and need to be discussed. But tonight is not designed to be that discussion. Tonight is designed to be the discussion for fees, to make the fees make sense. However, I do want to start by listing the stated purposes of Hopkinton's pay-by-bag program. To reduce the tax impact of operating the transfer station by taking in revenue for waste, to reduce waste through the transfer station, both environmentally good and good for reducing costs, and to increase recycling, both environmentally good and good for increasing revenues. Regardless of what Hopkinton decides to do with the green bag program and the prices for it, these are goals to keep in mind as we look at the transfer station fees and ordinance. I've mostly focused on the tax impact of the station when deciding on what fees to suggest in here, with them basically being costs, not including operating expenses such as facility maintenance, upgrades, and staffing. Expediently updating the fee schedule and associated portions of the ordinance as required is of utmost importance to stop hemorrhaging taxpayer money. As such, at the end of tonight, I'll make that formal motion and vote to bring the fees we discuss and decide on tonight to a public hearing at our next meetings and to be voted on for adoption following that public hearing. This has been through various iterations over many years, many select boards, with recent joint meetings prior to budget releases, petition warrant articles in response to the meetings, various work sessions and meetings and discussions since. It has been a long and winding process, full of frustration by many for various reasons, which I aim to have us accomplish and put behind us tonight. This is why we have these discussions in public, and to present the information we use to come up with the numbers to be as transparent as possible. Fees are the reason we are here tonight, and we have continued to lose money on every transaction at this point, thanks to increased prices to service our waste, which will only serve to increase taxes by increasing budget line items without associated revenue offsets that we should be getting. I believe that the haul tip item disposal rate should, at minimum, cover all non-operating costs to remove. The NRA report suggests making there be additions to those fees to make recycling more advantageous to individuals and to cover some operating costs. It is important to note that except for specific items, such as shingles, tires, TVs that show up on this fee schedule, these prices we are talking about tonight will not impact anyone using the transfer station as an average resident that comes into the station to drop off their sorted recycling and household trash. It may, however, lead to reduced budget requirements for the transfer station and therefore lower taxes. It's not our job to market the transfer station or make it an attractive place for people to tip trash. It is our job to be good financial stewards of taxpayer money and reduce the amount of tax money required to operate while ensuring that it can indeed fully operate. With that, the first of the fees is stickers. Permit stickers, the suggestion is to be $5 for residential vehicles to account for the costs of stickers, clerk time, and infrastructure for the sticker accounts. This assumes stickers remain at least multi-year, even if not infinite like they currently are. And this price would still be fine if a new sticker system were started next year, requiring new stickers for all. This would coincidentally create a one-time temporary revenue increase, though minor, when there would be the most significant increase to costs as the PFAS remediation begins. I'm not suggesting that should or should not happen in this fee discussion, but I thought it was worth mentioning that it would still be fine since the Hopkinton Board has discussed various replacement sticker systems at their recent work sessions. Currently, the price of $1 per sticker is listed in the transfer station ordinance on page 7 to be done only by the clerks, and that is being adjusted, but that is being adjusted to point to the transfer station fee schedule, as will all other fee items discussed tonight. We will get to changes to the ordinance to allow this at the end of the fees. That being said, rather than just rattle through a bunch of numbers, I now want to open it to discussion so we can make a decision on this fee and then move forward to the next.
I guess I'll start.
Please.
Myself and Thomas, who's not here this evening, we went down and checked stickers at the transfer station a couple of weeks ago. And it was very effective. I think the split between Hopkinton and Webster was about what the population split is. I think we had 3/4 or so, and you had 1/4. And for the most part, people were courteous. Many folks appreciated that we would be able to give them a sticker there while we were standing there. They had to wait 3 or 4 minutes while we jotted down their information. Overall, it was a good process. It also raised a couple of issues that we need to consider, most notably company-owned vehicles that aren't registered in the town, and how do we want to deal with that? That's a complexity for Dan and his team. It was complex for us that morning. Or I borrowed my dad's truck and he lives in Bow because we had a bunch of stuff to get rid of. And generally we looked at the person's driver's license to make sure they're a resident of one of the 2 towns. But we did discuss so part of the amusing thing for us was that we saw stickers that were 15 and 20 years old. Our stickers used to have a B in the middle of them, and that was probably when I first moved to town. People still had some of those stickers. We discussed last week, and I don't know if anybody else wants to speak to this, but issuing stickers annually to residents when they register their vehicle.
So I do want to say that that's a conversation we can and should have, but probably after we've done the
Don't want
fee
to take stuff
portion.
off course.
Yeah.
But that's really, I just wanted to give you sort of that background, because I'm sure you heard what we did last week, we probably didn't get the details.
I actually listened to your work session where that was given. I had a spiel for it, but we don't have many people here, so.
I'm just thinking through logistics, given that you guys, Jeff, at the transfer station, did you actually hand out the sticker? Or
We
you
did.
just- Huh, okay. So,
Because we had some Webster stickers that Neil had got in coordination with their town administrator.
I mean, is that like a practical, is it easy to collect $5 from people? Like, I don't know if we have, like, if they needed to get a sticker at the transfer station.
So currently, the ordinance says only from the town clerks. So how it changed from that to being free and also available at the town, at the transfer station is something in history, but
Dan,
I know that it's been that way for a while.
20 years ago, it was you bought them either at the town clerk or at the transfer station.
but do we give them out at the station, transfer station now?
I don't believe so.
No, I don't think we do. We had brought them with us for this sticker check, and
Okay.
taken people's license plates and their name, and wrote down the sticker number. We have all yours computerized, so Neil probably provided it already, but the ones that we gave out for Webster residents are all
Okay.
numbered and license plates and everything.
Yeah, so this basically suggests the same, that we stick with doing it at the clerk's office, the way that it presumably has supposed to have been done for a while. Obviously, one-off things with, select boards and certain checks make sense to do it this way. And then I'm sure it just goes back to the various clerk offices the same way it would normally. Yeah, so the ordinance has the $1 per sticker fee. I'm suggesting it be $5. This isn't a huge amount, but it's designed to basically try to start covering the costs of the system of stickers, regardless of whatever's done with stickers in the future.
I mean, I have some hesitation about the $5 charge, just because I want to have as few barriers as possible for people to either come get their stickers for the first time, or if they don't have to register a vehicle in town for some reason, coming to get it. And I expect that in our town, we may get a fair amount of pushback at our public hearing on some of these fees. And so, I mean, I feel more strongly about some of the other ones we're gonna talk about, raising them, that is, than I do this one. And so I worry about the sort of cumulative response from people if, we're asking them to pay $5 a sticker on top of all the other increases. Not so much for the amount of money, but just sort of the principle of having to pay $5 where it used to be free.
Well, it wasn't
So-
supposed to be free.
I understood, but historically it has been, so I think that's the expectation in town, at least, is that there's no charge for those,
I don't
rightly or
think it's-
wrongly.
I don't think it's unreasonable for us to have a small fee to cover the costs of issuing them.
Yeah.
Plus, to David's earlier point, all of these increases, they're not impacting people's day-to-day use of the transfer station, so
And,
maybe like psychologically this adds, I suppose, but it seems pretty minimal to cover.
and one
Yeah.
important point of this with the stickers is that this is not implementing a new stickering mechanism or even new stickers. So people who already have their stickers aren't affected at all, because this doesn't change that. If there is a new stickering system, which we can talk about at another time, then maybe the fee changes at that point. But that's not where we are right now, so.
One thing I want to point out is, we say residential. Part-time residents in town that are property taxpayers, they're not residents in the sense they don't vote, they don't register their cars here. So I think the wording might, should be carefully addressed.
That makes sense. I would personally suggest that residential vehicles doesn't mean that they have to be a full-time resident to get them. That would be where the town clerk would be saying, are you a resident enough that you should have it? Are you showing that you have a residence here and that you're at least here part-time?
If they're a property taxpayer.
Okay, so that's actually an interesting question that I don't know if either board has thought about or discussed. Should every property taxpayer be the one to have a sticker, whether or not they are a resident? And or should it just be anyone that's actually living or residing in town for any period of time? There's gonna be a lot of property owners that don't necessarily live in town and don't even come to town. They may not even have buildings on their lots. Should those people still be getting transfer station stickers?
The ordinance says residents including seasonal,
Right,
so,
but that's residents, that's not property owners like you
no,
just said. So-
You know, what's the definition of a resident? Is it somebody who's eligible to vote in the town? And the seasonal people would not be.
So the reason that I mentioned residential vehicles was not for trying to sort out or change who is allowed to get the stickers. It's to sort out the difference between people who are there as residents for whatever period of time versus like commercial trucks. So if you're a commercial business owner, you shouldn't be getting a normal residential sticker and just bringing down a truckload of trash every day. That's the only reason that I put that there. Yes?
I'm just saying, there's numerous residents in Hopkinton that are business owners, but they also live in Hopkinton. Why cannot they not bring their trash over with a residential sticker?
So they're bringing their commercial.
No, they're bringing their household trash
Oh,
over in
yeah.
their commercial vehicle.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But you're not saying that they're tearing down a house
No.
next
they're-
door and
They're bringing
it
their
in.
trash
Yeah,
over.
Yeah,
So now they are a commercial entity, but they're bringing over their residential trash. How are you gonna differentiate someone, well, you have a commercial truck, so we're not gonna give you a residential sticker, we're gonna give you a commercial sticker? I think we're just creating a lot of headache. I think any resident or property owner in town should have they pay taxes, they should be able to get a sticker. Whether they're full-time, part-time, does not matter.
So I wasn't trying to go down a rabbit hole there. Apparently we did. But yeah, I'm focused on the particular fee, not changing the way that it's used. I was trying to encompass a wording to put on the fee schedule, since it would be coming out of the ordinance. But the
If we just-
fee is the focus.
took out the word residential.
Sure.
That might make sense.
Okay, so is that kind of is that the consensus then? The 5 per vehicle, does that make sense? I see a bunch of nodding.
I think so.
Okay,
That's fine.
so sorry, this will probably just vanish for a second. While I stick that in my other sheet to make it easier later.
Yeah, and they're just called permit stickers here.
Okay. So, moving on. Brush and stumps. They are done by load, and that sounds good as long as we have both capacity and non-mud surface to handle the management of it. Nearby towns don't seem to do this with posted fees, and I'm told we have these processed by an outside company that turns some into biofuel, but that we pay them to do this. This is the hardest item on this list for me to suggest a price for, as costs don't really have a specific fluidity. And so I'm putting up what's been here, which is the existing cost in the ordinance of $100 per ton by 200-pound increments. And the last draft of the fees suggested $10 for passenger truck and $20 for a one-ton truck. What are the thinkings on this? How did that end up being the recommendation? And or does transfer station staff have a better idea?
I think this was their idea.
Hmm?
I think this was your suggestion, right?
Yeah, they were looking for a fee, so, I mean, it costs money to have that company come in and grind the stuff up, so we thought $10 for a load of brush was very reasonable.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
Dan, the 400 pounds per truck, how is that determined?
All that stuff is sent out by tonnage. The brush is not ground up by tonnage, it's basically by volume.
Okay, so it's a separate entity, okay. I'll ask the other question later.
How likely is it that the $10 and $20 fees here for a passenger truck and a one-ton truck, though I would consider them about the same, how
Passenger-
likely are those to actually cover the costs?
Not a clue.
Okay.
Until it's implemented, we can kind of get a rough idea of how it's going, not a clue. It's a
Okay.
good place to start. And those are two totally different vehicles. $10 for a passenger truck is a regular pickup truck. A one-ton truck has a dump body,
Oh, okay.
can hold a lot more material.
You're doing it that way, okay, that makes sense. All right, so is there consensus on these fees? All
I think
right.
so.
Oh, I heard something.
Yes,
So I think so.
Okay. So again, this will vanish for 1 second. We'll put that in the handy dandy chart, which will be easier to share with folks afterwards. And make it easier for you to display and talk about it. All right, we're moving nicely. Fees 3, metal and recyclables. Metal and other recyclables should continue to be no charge at this time, as overall they are a net revenue. I will note that many of the things that other towns charge for, such as anything with a small engine, bed frames, chairs, typically end up falling into our metal pile and is thus beneficial to the public for the way that we do business compared to others. I would suggest that we consider spelling out the recycling items we accept on the fee schedule to promote awareness both of how much we do recycle as well as the items that shouldn't be mixed in. These can also be listed as free to help encourage the public to realize that you can do this instead of giving us trash and having to pay for it. What are the thoughts on the putting them in the fee schedule versus having a separate thing? Should we call it out, or should we just leave it as metal, or should it be like metal and all recyclables free?
I think all recyclables is too confusing.
I thought that was a little too simplistic, which is why it wasn't,
And, you know, the metal thing does generate revenue, and Dan, you may or may not know that there are people who come down and pick metal and leave with it, which bothers me.
yes, I see that a lot.
And I hope that at some point we can try to curtail that. I don't know how.
And I certainly take a few things from there when I think I'm going to use it, like repairing a bike to give to somebody, but other than
Yeah,
that.
but
yeah.
these are people
There
who
are
just make the
definitely
rounds
people
and
that
take
are
the stuff
metal
back.
recycling, they do it all, then they go around and collect scrap from people in town, and then go take scrap from our recycling pile as well, yes. But that's a different discussion.
Yes.
So do we want to try to add things onto the fee schedule and encourage them by saying that they're free? Or do we want to just leave it as metal the way that it was?
I personally would like to just leave it as metal, because I think we have a lot of other materials that talk about what can be recycled at the transfer station and what can't. And I think they're readily available if you go to look for them. So that's just my
So
thought.
currently, we are charging for dryers, wash machines, dishwashers, and this will get rid of that. Because there's no need to charge for that stuff when we're getting paid for it.
I'll get to that set of stuff when we go to white bids,
So
but yes.
we will be charging for refrigerators, air conditioners and such. And I think if we just leave the fee schedule with fees, it'll just simplify it a whole lot better. Just leave whatever we're
Sounds
charging
good.
for, that's what we're charging for. And everything else,
Mhm.
they can figure it out.
Is that the consensus? Okay. Moving on. Construction debris prices are suggested at this rate due to costs. The rates suggested at the prior meetings were close, but did not appear to include some fees such as average fuel surcharges per haul. There was also discussion about matching the debris and normal tipping fees, as it was suggested this was done in many places, like our neighbors do. I will leave that discussion for when we get to general waste tipping. However, I want to simply focus on the costs here. As such, these recommendations are listed for pre-sorted demo, source-separated wood, and shingles. The previous ordinance was $175 for pre-sorted and separated wood and did not consider shingles. The draft that we have seen was $145, $115, and $123. Our neighbors charge $155 to $350 without separating out the lower cost shingles and wood. And the suggestion here is $155 for pre-sorted, $135 for the wood, and $130 for shingles, based on the calculated costs and average fuel surcharges. This is a change from the previous draft that you may have seen and worked with, so please ask questions and discuss as appropriate.
So what are the costs that, say, the 155 would be covering?
So all of these costs, as in the previous draft, are to cover the cost of removal and the cost of the haul itself. The one change that was not in the previous calculation, as far as I can tell, is that it was not including the average fuel surcharge that was also showing up for per haul. And so this updated fee that's slightly higher than the draft is to account for that.
I believe we had the fuel surcharge incorporated into those prices.
So based on the, and I would love if that's true, because then we can make it cheaper for people. Based on the demo hauling that I had gotten from the transfer station, and then there's the one that I have. That was the one I took a picture of. And the quotes that had been provided, that's actually possible. The interesting bit to me at the time was the comment that we had a quote, but we weren't actually always being charged as much as was in the quote. And so that could make sense for the particular fees. The quote is saying that the trucking fee is $400 per haul, that it's $120 per ton for the main demo, $109 per ton for shingles, $84 for the wood. There's also listed in the $400 per haul fee, and then what I did was take the fuel surcharges out of the demo hauling billing list that was provided to me at the transfer station, add them together and divide by the number of trips and hauls that had happened to get the added amount. What that came out to was $190 per average haul fuel surcharge to come up with a total of $590 per haul on average, in addition to the tonnage fees. I then took the average amount per each of those hauls that was listed. So the demo average was 18 tons per haul, the wood was 12.5 tons per haul, and the shingles at 28 tons per haul. And divided them out to get the prices that you see and rounded to the nearest 5. Oops. Are there questions, comments, concerns? Just want to leave it the less expensive way anyway.
So can I just ask it?
Please.
You seem to think that the fuel surcharges were in the numbers that.
I'm just going, I don't have that paperwork with me, but
Okay.
I do know, I sat down and averaged out how many loads per each item, what the fuel surcharges were, added those in, and those are the numbers that we came up with
Okay,
when we talked earlier.
yeah, okay. Thanks.
They're pretty close to each other, but again,
Do you?
I can only provide my numbers, and he says they're already accounted for, so I'm not gonna go against that either.
I mean, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. The main biggest delta seems to be the separated wood. The
Mhm.
others seem pretty close.
Yeah, and that was, let's see, so Star Separated Wood got there with the main difference being that doing per haul, and it's less tonnage per haul, so you get more added per ton. And so we had the $47 per ton haul fee plus the 84 cost was the 131, up rounded to 135 is how I came up with that number. Now, if he's saying that all of that was accounted for, perhaps I'm just reading numbers wrong, or perhaps his numbers are based on what we were getting charged instead of what the quote says, because I know there is a small difference there, and there are for some other items as well.
I am going by what we were charged.
Okay, so that's gonna be the difference. Mine is gonna be based on the quote, his is gonna be based on the actual charge. So in theory, we get charged this, in practice, we get charged that. So,
And is it pretty much just missing the fuel surcharge part of it?
No, we have the fuel
no, they're
surcharge.
accounting for it, but we're not actually getting charged the same amount as is in the quote.
I have the actual prices of each load that's gone out in 2023.
Mhm.
I used those numbers, not by
That's using,
Oh,
what someone said they might charge us.
And so Dan, just so I know, is the tonnage rate up for 2024 over what it was?
That I don't know.
Okay. That's the
Some
only.
stuff, yes.
So
but I think
that's
we-
the-
I think-
that would be the difference between the two.
And I think
discussions.
Jolie and I also used that to calculate in here on the stuff that was gonna go up. To the best of her knowledge at the time we did this.
yeah. So I would not account for the difference being a difference in expectation for the year. I would account the difference between a quote versus an actual bill.
Right. No, I agree.
Should,
I wouldn't be opposed to splitting the difference between the two numbers.
Sold.
right. All in favor?
So 150, 125, and 125.
150 and 125 for the other two?
Yeah.
Was what you're saying? Is that the general consensus? Okay, I will.
Give ourselves a little cushion
I will put that in.
case they start actually charging us the quarter number.
Let's see, so that
Dan, do you get a lot of that stuff?
Here.
What's that?
The recyclable, you know, the shingles and the, not recyclable,
Yes,
but, yeah,
we get a lot.
yeah.
Okay. Moving along. White goods, this is what was briefly brought up. The existing ordinance has pricing in it for lots of various categories of white goods, but those containing refrigerants is the category that matters, suggested at the prior joint meeting, and I believe in your work session, as well as by the transfer station staff. Nearby towns are $10 to $35 per item for items containing refrigerants. Some of them do it depending on size. The draft, I believe, was based on actual bills again, while the suggestion is based on the quoted price. The previous, let's see, I thought I had it listed there. Oh, the draft was for $10 and the suggestion was for $15. I believe we're currently getting charged somewhere around 9, and the quote originally was for 15. So does that sound about right to you?
I guess, are you talking just the refrigerants?
Just the refrigerants.
Alls I know is what we came up with, which was 10.
Okay.
I think it was slightly below that, or right at that.
Yeah. Yeah, the listing was that it was slightly lower than that was what you were getting, but the original quote sheet had 15 on it, so. This is another one of those where the difference is between billing and quoting, and so I leave that as a discussion. I like to hedge on the people who are bringing it can pay for it instead of the taxpayers, but we're also talking about $5, so. I mean, granted, there's a number of items that will come in, but we're still not talking major amounts of cash here. So what are the boards thinking? What is their pleasure for a number?
I'm going with the quoted 15 here, if that's what the quote matches. I mean,
Okay.
but I'm not super, I don't feel super strongly if others feel like we should stick with 10.
I'm just back to where I was a minute ago, you know, are we sure it's only gonna stay at 9 or 10?
We don't, but I thought originally you were gonna try to make the option to change the prices as they go, like annually or biannually.
Yes, but this
Yes,
is our
yes.
first go through this, so
Yeah.
we're trying to set it appropriately the first time.
So I guess it's when you're gonna get that finalized as to what the numbers are gonna be. And they could hold there for 2 or 3 years, we don't know.
I envision this as an annual process that will go down this same list, have this same discussion, and
Yep.
some will change and some won't.
Does anyone have a major problem with just going with 15?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So I will put that in. And to be clear, as you saw in the slide, and we'll again in a second, our neighboring towns had that price between 10 and 35. I've mentioned neighboring towns a couple times, but I haven't actually stated them, so I should probably do that, because I fast forwarded through my earlier stuff. Towns that I looked at were Warner, Concord, and Boscawen, because they are our direct neighbors. Okay, moving on. Tires. Tires were discussed in terms of theory at our prior joint meeting, with lots of round and round. Looking at the NRA report and costs, these should probably be $5 for car and $25 for truck. It's notable that most places somebody would purchase a tire from will also take back their old tires. Tractor and equipment tires was something that was theorized about at the prior joint meeting, but we had no data for it. Nearby towns charge $100+ for this, if they take them at all. And the larger sizes have highly variable prices and are hard to manage at the transfer station, according to the folks I was talking with there. Sorry, that was not Dan, so he may have a different opinion. So it has been suggested that we should continue to not accept larger tires. So that is where I have gone with the suggestion here. And you can see the previous draft was 5 and 21. And so we are pretty close on those. Did I see 5? Sorry, I'm looking at my chart for a second to make sure I didn't typo. I did. So my suggestion was going to be 10 and 25. What I read was 5 and 25. And again, that's, where is it? That's based on the NRA report, which was in your packet for your work session, but I don't have sitting in front of me at the time. It was the charge of tires, but plus the load fee to come take care of it.
Dan, are you having trouble getting rim tires?
We have a company coming in now, and it's about $5 a tire, 21 for truck, and $80 for tractor tires.
Yeah, and, oh, okay. So those are the basically the per tire fees that are listed in the NRA
Right.
report, who I believe is the company that's handling all of that. But they also have a like per load fee, which is why I suggested the slightly higher. It's the difference between, are you accounting for basically everything except for operating costs and facility, or are you accounting for just the good going away? Is how I look at
Don't know
it.
if Jolene mentioned to me about a cost for them to come and get them, just a fee for them to take.
Do you get many tractor tires?
Not a ton, maybe less than half a dozen a year probably.
So Jolene had suggested that we should not continue, because it's not in the ordinance to start with, that we continue not accepting larger tires. Are you saying that we probably should start accepting them and put them
I
in
can
the
talk to
schedule?
her, but I know when we have a tire at the highway garage, it goes over there, because she can get rid of it.
I would say that's a little different than opening up to the public for tractor tires
I
and
don't think you're
similar.
gonna get an influx of tractor tires.
Probably not. Okay,
I think you feel fortunate that you can get rid of the tires. I know that's not an easy
Yeah.
feat, so I think people be able, and there again, you're right, they'll take them at a tire place, but they'll charge you to leave them there, so.
yeah.
I would say we'd wanna be, cause you don't want that time when they say they're hard to get rid of.
I think I like the lower numbers because they match up with, I think, what we're paying, and I also don't wanna see tires end up just out in the woods, because people are happy about paying a little more.
Mhm.
I know being with the highway department, we get a lot of white goods, tires, oil, stuff like that on the side of the road that we have to go pick up.
Okay. Is it, yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know what to do about the tractor equipment size ones. But, you know, I don't feel strongly one way or the other on
If you
those.
would leave that open, I mean, I can talk to Jolene on Wednesday and confirm the ease of getting rid of them through that company.
I mean, if it's primarily the highway garage that's sending those tires a half a dozen a year, that's.
We're only doing like one a year, but I have seen other ones in there.
Be part of the family. Get a family discount.
So, well, yeah, all other towns get to use the transfer station for free. Perhaps the most sensible way then would be to leave it at the lower numbers, but not include the larger size for this fee schedule. And because that's something that we can always add as desired, whether it's at a revisit next year or later on through the public hearing process.
When you say the original numbers,
The 5 and 21 from the original draft.
so we're going down from 13 years ago.
Let me check what that was. So, yes, 13 years ago was 10 and 20. And so that's another partial reason for the recommendation of going 10 and 25.
Yeah. I also think anyone who's throwing tires in the woods now, or like, you know, I don't think like a $4 difference is gonna move the needle on people throwing tires in the woods or not. Like, if they're doing it, but I don't know.
Well, the flip side is, this is just a pass-through, right? We're taking 5 and 21, we're laying out 5 and 21. We're not covering anyone's time or loading of them or whatever, pushing them around. I mean, that's the only piece that I guess
Well, and to be clear, so far, every fee that we've talked about, and for the recommendations that we're gonna see here, these fees are not designed to cover facility or operating expenses. We have a budget, there are taxes, but the taxpayers shouldn't just be funding other people's trash. is basically how these fees are being looked at for the recommendations that you're seeing. In providing options, we can do whatever the board's pleasures are, just trying to put the numbers there to make sense of it and allow for good decisions.
I'm fine with 10, 25, I think they seem very reasonable and nice round numbers, but again, if others would prefer to stick with 5 and 21. I'm not
And
gonna-
I agree.
If it
10
was
and
10,
25.
if it was 10, 13 years ago, it seems reasonable to have 10 now.
You've heard both over there. How about the other members? So we can try to develop a consensus.
I'll go with 10 and 25 also.
There you go, Tom. Okay. So I will go stick that in the chart, which
So
we
are
will get a
we-
full copy of afterwards to make it easy to see what you said.
Are we leaving 80 in for purposes of noticing the public hearing, or are we taking it out now? I think if we want,
I thought we were going to not put it there unless he came back with saying that that was easy to do, but I'm fine either way.
I guess my suggestion or thought is if we keep it in, then the public will have notice that we're considering it, and we can always take it out once we get clarification from Dan and Joey.
That is a fair point.
I'll have numbers for you or an answer on Wednesday, so.
Yeah, so well before any sort of public hearing that we have.
So that gets to process, which I was expecting to touch on later, but we can go there now. At the end of this, my original expectation was that we would make a motion that this is what we have decided for the ordinance and the fees, is what we would bring towards a public hearing. We would each hold a public hearing at our next meetings and then either approve or disapprove of that based on the public feedback. However, a comment such as, we're going to consider it and we can always remove it, or the fact that the previous ordinance is showing that it was a joint meeting jointly signed at the same time, indicate that that may not be the process that we actually use. And so that's my question for all of our administrators here. What is the process that we can and should use for that? Because if we are having separate meetings, then we may or may not have this as not the way that we want to move into that. It's certainly like, yeah, we'll have the number tomorrow, we should or shouldn't put it in. If we have consensus, that's fine. But what does that process look like?
And I think you're alluding to the problem is if changes are made on one and not the other, they have to be the exact same that's
Correct.
adopted.
So of course, any motion would have to be contingent upon approval of same by the other 10.
So you're saying like a joint public hearing with
So my question
both
is,
towns involved?
does it need to be a joint public hearing, or can we actually have the two separate public hearings, one at each place by the board at their normal times, just like they normally would?
I would think the disadvantage would be if you had two differing opinions and would have to kind of revisit the issue. I kind of like the idea of a joint meeting, even though I'm not quite sure of how that all works out, but everyone would be in the same room at the same time and be able to hear everyone's opinion at the same time, theoretically.
Unless, when we have the public hearing, we don't need to vote on it then, do we, right? Like process-wise, we just have to have a public hearing and then we could vote on it at the next meeting, theoretically? I'm asking because we could have the public hearing, land where we land as boards, and then the two of us just meet again to hash out the final ordinance language or whatever, final numbers.
I have a question. Can we hold like a public hearing in Hopkinton, one here at the same time, and kind of have them together somehow? I'm not Dave's I just wondered if that would be something we could do, and then we could all, questions from both sides would be asked. Is that impossible?
Logistically, it would be a little funny.
Okay.
Technically, it would be possible. I don't believe the law currently allows for a dual noticed, single public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
I think in that case, it would be two public hearings that were happening at the exact same
Yeah,
time,
right, yeah.
that were
Yeah.
remotely connected. I think they would be legally separate.
Well, I just thought because both towns payers are paying for all this, so if somebody might in Webster have a question, somebody have something totally different, and they'd all get the answers at the same time. Makes it simpler.
Can I not be at that meeting?
So our,
We're not gonna let you miss all the fun, David.
so our next regularly scheduled meeting, I think, is June 10th, right? Do I have that right?
I thought we had one Tuesday.
Oh, we have one Tuesday. Oh, this is, right.
We can't have a
Right.
public hearing
Which we
next
can't do
Tuesday.
next Tuesday,
Wait a
So
minute.
it would be June 10th.
Yeah. So we meet the first and third, and I believe you meet the second and fourth Mondays. So they're kind of opposite each other. If
So
we-
you,
If we wanted to, we could decide on one of the two locations to be a joint public hearing. Again, that's, I don't know whether that's necessary, required, or optimal or not.
how far in advance do we have to give notice? A week?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we had ours on the 10th, and then we as a board land that night, that means we would have something to come back to you guys with by the 10th, and then you meet on the 3rd and 17th, you said? So
the
if you
goal,
had,
the goal for us would be to, let's see, do we have the number of days to? Yeah, it should be 2 weeks to the next one, so we'd be okay to announce the public hearing for our first.
I think
of the
you'd
month.
have sufficient time.
Yeah.
so if you guys had yours on the 3rd, we have ours on the 10th, and then we as boards come together to finalize, and
The 17th?
that would be your next meeting. We could just do what we're doing tonight and come on our off week, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
We could do that, and then we could all decide and sign,
Yeah, okay.
and that would make it easy with the other thing of that for the ordinance, which is effective the first of the next month. Okay. So are we putting the 80 on there, or a different number, or not accepted?
Just leave it off, in my opinion.
Leave it off.
He says leave it
Sure.
off, okay. So I'll stick with that for now. All right. That covers tires. Next is off-hour emergencies, which thankfully are easy. They were for cost plus, but we can remove this entirely as that was only used for septage, and that's no longer accepted.
Don't we use it for the fair?
It's used for the haulers.
Oh, Jolene told me it was only used for septage hauling.
But doesn't M&T use it? If they come in for the fair on
Yes,
an
they
off day.
could possibly come in for the fair.
Ah, okay. That's good to know. Is this an appropriate fee then, or should it be higher? How does this work with staffing and so on?
Usually one person comes in. And it's just, they dump the trash and they push the button and push it in the trailer.
And it's
Okay.
$60 plus cost,
Right.
so.
Okay. Any questions, comments, or different numbers then, instead of simply removing it?
So even for one person to come in, is $60 cover all of their costs?
Yeah,
It's plus
they're
cost.
Plus
cost.
costs.
It's plus cost, but
Okay.
they're usually only there less than an
I mean, I would leave it as it is.
Okay. Any other comments or agreement with that? Okay, I will stick that in to actually leave it. Okay. We're moving through nicely. And there we go. So electronics prices are listed as consensus from the last meeting prior to the we should move to weighing everything concept that the staff has said is not feasible. These seem to be reasonable compared to other towns and to our costs. CPUs currently provide minor revenue, so should remain at 0 for this fee schedule update, though they did have a charge in the original ordinance. So the suggestion is to keep the previous draft pricing, which, if you wait one moment, I will pull up. So that was $10 for 25-inch or less TV or monitor, $20 for a larger monitor, $30 for projection console tube-type TV, $5 for various miscellaneous like VCR, DVD, microwave, etc. And that is what was there with E0 for CPUs. To compare to nearby towns, the TVs are all 5 to 30 or 20 to 30 depending on size. Miscellaneous stuff is 5 to 10, and they all charge for CPUs 5 to 15. The original ordinance charged for all of them. We would be fairly similar in line with inflated costs for all of our sizes.
Yeah, and we already debated and landed here, so no problem with it.
So, is everybody good with keeping those?
Yep.
Okay. Mark that down. All right. Pressurized items. Potentially pressurized and dangerous items should probably be simplified to be $5 for 20 pounds and under, and $20 for over 20 pounds, and $10 for extinguishers. The practical upper limit of size was given as if it fits in the truck. Concord is $10 and 20, Boscawen is $5 and 15. This matches the draft for extinguishers of $10 and is slightly above those prior draft prices for propane tanks to account for the simplification of removing the $20 exactly item and the upper end size inclusion. So you can see what is up here. Those numbers can obviously be changed, but it's pretty close to what is there. We'd probably make a buck here or there.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay, I will stick that in as the board's consensus as well.
What's the over?
5 and 15.
And lastly, general waste tipping. Solid waste tipping fee should be at least $1.20 per ton to account for costs and lost recycling offset revenue. As you've likely seen by now, I'm a facts and figures and numbers guy, so here's how that conclusion was reached. The NRA report suggested $150. $157 per ton was suggested in the Trash the Final Frontier presentation given in the past by Hopkinton as base cost plus operating expense. A high price will either make the trash pay for itself, financially incentivize creating less trash, or make trash go elsewhere so we don't have to pay for it and we'll wear out our equipment and facility as fast. Any of those are a good thing as far as taxes are concerned, and some of them are a good thing as far as recycling and conservation are concerned. A higher price would allow for pricing of separated demo items such as wood and shingles to be lower than hiding that in the general trash, encouraging separation and recycling and reuse rather than encouraging single stream dumping as lower tipping price fees do. An average tipped haul also usually has all the household recyclables in it, which are not sorted out and brought to us as individuals do. Those are lost revenues that are instead turned into additional waste and costs. This suggestion reflects that. Our neighbors all charge quite a bit more, so this suggestion is certainly not overly burdensome, though it does have the negative effect of making it advantageous to still hide your demo in your solid waste. If those rates matched, we would still be the same or less than our neighbors, but the suggestion here is at least $1.20 to cover costs and lost recycling offsets. Recycling and neighbor numbers, I'll dive into that for the methodology of it. Household recycling was roughly 15% of our MSW tonnage last year, which was an all-time low for various temporary reasons. But using that as the most recent figure, we can calculate out some likely averages. Since we were talking about $100 per ton at the end of the last joint session, I'll start there because it makes the numbers easy to understand. When a ton is tipped in general, it will have roughly 15% worth that shouldn't be there as waste, based on the average numbers. That 15% worth of extra cost to us should be accounted for by the tipping fee if we set the fee at full cost rather than only transport and landfill cost. But we must also consider that the 15% there is also lost revenue. If we look at the revenue and savings from the recycling reports, that is worth, in general, slightly more in revenue than the amount saved from reduction of waste tonnage. But let's just call it 15% for the sake of argument as well. This means at a minimum to not cost shift to taxpayers, if $100 is full cost to process and get to the landfill, not including operating expenses, we should be charging $115. Using the $157 value presented as full cost in Trash Final Frontier, that would make the needed minimum $180. If we use a pre-pandemic roughly 25% recyclable number, but only the cost to actually remove the waste, rather than full cost, we end up with about $120 for tipping fee as a minimum. Right in the middle of all those numbers is where the NRA suggested the value be set at $150. For comparison, our direct neighbor Boscawen charges $200 per ton for their tipping fee. Concord charges $155 per ton for Concord tipping and $185 per ton for non-Concord tipping. Warner does it at $60 per yard for construction or demo, which, converting to weights with charts provided by the US EPA, is a minimum of $200 per ton, but around $350 per ton if using the typical uncompacted curb-type household trash weights. And thus, the suggestion of 120 plus, so the 120 is the suggested minimum. Anything additional to that would be worth discussion if you wanted to try to use it as a lever to push people towards more recycling or trash reduction, or if you were looking to, or if you were worried about people putting in demo and such into normal mainstream waste. I tend to think that our residents are generally pretty okay and are not going to try to do the wrong thing. So I'm not recommending that we try to push them in that direction. But that is a valid discussion to have, and I leave that to you to begin where you want to go with that.
What did you say the number would be at the peak of the recycling percentage?
In which way?
From past years, would it?
We average about 25% from pre-pandemic, and through most of the majority, it's about 25% when considering recycling to MSW. The recycling reports may have a slightly different number in them, because that is, I believe, done towards the entire tonnage, which includes things like demo.
And at the 25%, what does that change $120 to?
So the $120 is taking our costs and using the 25% to get to approximately $120. Our costs are somewhere around 97, 93, something of that nature.
And would you have any idea of what the statewide percentage for recycling is?
I based it off of the Webster Hopkinton reports.
My memory is that when we were at our last Hopkinton meeting talking about this, there was agreement on a minimum of 120, and there was some discussion and some desire to go above that, but we couldn't figure out how high to go. But we all did agree, I believe, and someone can speak up if I'm wrong about that, but I think everyone was okay with 120 at a minimum.
Yeah.
So, based on that comment, I will leave the suggestion for you to choose between two numbers, one of which would be or three numbers, I guess. One would be the $100 that basically just only covers the actual waste. The second would be the 120, which covers the loss of revenue and the recycling portion. And then the third would be to match it to the demo tip rate that we decided on earlier, which most towns have them at the same rate. Those are kind of your three general make sense numbers that are easy to back up with reasons for them. Obviously, the suggestion from here is the 120, because that just, like, it actually covers all of the stuff and the lost revenue. So.
I argued for the higher number.
I always argue for a higher number because I have to, let me put more revenue. But I think the 120 is very defensible.
Are there any other questions or
Neil, when
comments
does our
on this?
contract price go up?
It goes up January 1.
January 1. And what is it now?
We're at 93,
9313, right?
13. Yeah,
Thank you.
it goes up. I think there's one more year in the 5-year contract. Which is
Yeah, I
actually a
mean-
very good price. That's a really good
Yes,
price.
it
That
has been
contract was-
indicated to me by a couple different people that they don't know exactly why, but we tend to have a far better price for this than surrounding towns and municipalities do.
Waste.
For the actual removal of the waste.
Somebody made a good deal.
Someone made a very good deal, and whoever that
Thanks,
is,
Dan.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Waste.
Dan, was
If
that
that's
you?
Dan, you
No,
rock.
it's not me.
Waste management needed New Hampshire trash to put into turnkey. So we were able to.
We have trash.
That was, we would have 4 years ago been at over 100, but we negotiated that down because they needed in-state trash because of
So they can take more out of
debates
state
they were
trash.
having. So they could take out of state trash,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
very
That's
true.
where they make their margin.
I don't love being so much lower than surrounding towns, but I know we have talked about this a lot, and I'm okay with 120 for now, but if others wanted to go a little higher, I mean, I think it's also defensible, especially since that's the suggestion, and considering what Bosquen, Concord, and Warner are.
I mean, we also, just getting back to process, I mean, we will have a final opportunity to talk about
Mhm.
these before we vote on implementing them.
Yeah,
And so we can see what the public response is at 120,
yeah.
and think about it a little more before we have to decide.
And Neil, you said this one more year?
Yes, I think 2025 is the last year of the contract.
And there's a, like, every year increase, but it's probably a small percentage, right?
It is, yeah, it's either, it might be even 3%. It is small.
So a few bucks.
So it will probably be close to 100 next year.
Okay. So is 120 itself the actual consensus of the boards?
That's for now.
Okay. I will go put that
So
in,
can I ask a process question, Neil?
please.
If we go to a public hearing with 120, and as we expect people will go crazy, we could still keep it at 120. Public hearings, just to get the public's opinion, we're not bound by their sentiment.
That's
Right.
I didn't know if you were gonna go for, let's just tell them 140, and then they get mad, we'll do 140.
It's a different strategy, but I like it.
Okay, so many towns charge for other items such as sofas, fluorescent lights, mattresses, etc. Looking briefly with transfer station staff, I didn't see anything else worth including on the fee schedule, except for possibly smoke detectors. Smoke detectors are the one item that sticks out on the cost of removal, being $12, that are expensive enough that we might have wanted to add a fee. Most people probably don't think to pull them out of their normal household trash though, and we don't want to encourage them leaving them in the general trash. So I'm not really suggesting that we include them. Mattresses were brought up at the last meeting by one of your board and show $10 to $35 for disposal in most nearby towns. So I wanted to make sure we had a chance to discuss it and see if anyone thought anything else worthwhile. I do believe, however, that those just get tossed in the hopper as normal wastes. Unless they're highly springed for like mattresses.
Yeah, right in the.
Yeah, I think that's why we,
So if they count as waste, whether it's thrown in or weighed, however is the appropriate method to do that, that's not a whole lot of cost.
They're just thrown in, they're not weighed because they're all under 400 pounds.
Yeah.
okay.
So, is there any other item or items that either the staff or the boards feel should be brought up and looked at for fees? Because that is the end of the fee section.
Did you count propane tanks, was that with fire extinguishers?
Yeah, fire extinguishers stayed, and then propane tanks we simplified to 20 and under and over 20.
Okay.
At 5 and 15.
Okay, so that moves us on to the ordinance. In general, the draft ordinance provided by Hopkinton drops the may charge in many places and refers to the new fee schedule while removing cost tables, removes most separations of commercial and residential portions, including for tires, and drops anything related to septic. This is what I'm starting from with what should be adjusted in the ordinance rather than the original. There is one other difference that I believe we just got today that is slightly different with Neil, and I'll try to cover that later. But here is the ordinance that we go into. The first section that I believe we need to look at is Article 2, and that is use of the facility. Section 8.3 needs to be adjusted to say that we only take those things mentioned in the fee schedule. For example, this is where we talk about not taking things that may be explosive or flammable, etc. And we do take propane tanks. So that's why we may need to adjust that based on vendor capabilities. And I guess I'll just cover the other item in the same article, which is section 8.15. That should simply point to the fee schedule for both residents and commercial. It's the same, or not separate out residents and commercial. It's the same sentence twice pointing to the fee schedule.
Are you good with questions for me?
Please.
Are you all set with me?
Oh,
He means can he go home?
I actually have to go soon too. I promised my children I'd be home for birthday celebration.
If you have questions, I'll stay, but if you guys are gonna talk about the ordinance, I really don't need to
I
be here for
think
that.
we've moved through all of the fees unless there's anything from the boards on that.
I think we're good. I'm good.
I'm good.
We're not
Okay.
actually voting on
Thank you
anything
very
tonight,
much.
right? We're just discussing. We're not voting on anything.
There will
Just
be
that there's a
vote.
non-public.
Right, yeah.
Voting to go to public hearing.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
guys have enough people to go into a non-public,
Yeah.
and Neil, you know my thoughts anyway, I think, so. I looked through your slides and thought everything seemed pretty reasonable, so I trust the rest of them. My capable board to.
Here we go,
I'm
Ken.
sorry.
It's you and me against Steve.
I'm sorry.
Has to present.
This is your chance.
It's my
Well,
birthday.
let me suggest that you stick around for one more, just because this is the different area.
Okay.
And that was the permit stickers.
Oh,
The permit stickers in the draft that we had, not the one that was just sent today.
Actually, it was sent
This-
last week.
Oh, okay, well, I saw, we got it today. The only real difference that I find there was that the stickers were moved to the right instead of the left. It did not refer to a new policy such as the last one that just came. And so I would suggest we strike that change until such time as a new sticker system and or policy may be implemented, and then adjust it at that time if one is. that would clearly identify any change moving forward at that time and not invalidate a bunch that already exist until the new system would do so anyway.
I think the location was changed in 2012. That
So
wasn't.
the one in the
that-
ordinance says on, the original ordinance says on the left, which is also where mine is, and the new the draft ordinance from the work session that you had, which is where I had the last one, said on the right. That was really the only difference there from the previous.
But it's said on the right, I think the original actually came from here and it has said on the right since then, so that was not a
The
change.
scanned copy I have says on the left.
Oh.
All the new ones we put on last week or 2 weeks ago went on the right.
Okay.
And the explanation that I understood, I don't even know who I heard it from, maybe Jolene, was that if you're in the transfer station
It's easier to
office
see
with the
from that
doorway,
side.
they're easier to see.
Right.
That's all I got.
So I think that was made in a previous version, or somehow got changed in a draft, but that's been.
There were some approved drafts of the
And
ordinance
maybe-
that were not approved by the boards, and were recommended and so on, so it may have happened at that time. But that was the one thing there. We certainly have stickers on both sides on various different places. And the second was that not moving towards the policy one, which can be a further discussion at a different time. You had mentioned that there was, and there was discussion at your past meeting of charging those without a sticker by weight. And that solves I haven't gotten my sticker for the new car yet. I borrowed this vehicle, I just moved to town, didn't get one, I'm using my company's car. It solves all those problems. If they don't have a sticker on the vehicle, they can still pay by weight and it won't harm the tax base. If that's to be done, it should be included here in the ordinance. I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, but if that's something that we discuss and say should happen, this would be the place.
My memory is that we had some concern about the transfer station collecting money if someone were to, show up with an ID and charge by weight, because they're really just not set up to do that.
Oh, don't they charge?
They do that all the
They charge
time for tipping
everybody.
in
Oh, well.
college. It's the same thing and the same fee.
I think though Jolene and Dan were concerned about how logistically that would work.
Yeah.
That
Well,
they would prefer to check the ID, and if they're fine, they just come in and.
I thought the same thing when we were talking about brush, $10 a truck. Because most people dive in there before they get to the office. They don't go and check with the office, can I put my brush down? And so that's gonna create a difficult situation for them, but that's an implementation thing. Doesn't mean we shouldn't
Their
charge.
signage already says not to do that, so, yeah. So, before you left, I wanted to bring that up, because that was the one possible major difference between a draft you had seen and before, and maybe the latest one you thought we might be talking about. But those two concepts, where are the board's wanting to go? Because we do need to have a consensus to then bring to our public hearings. The others, I think, are fairly germane.
There'd be a period of time, whether it's a month or 3 months, for people to go to get their stickers before this kind of a thing would be implemented.
None of that's in the ordinance. The ordinance, as it stands right now, just says if you don't have a sticker, go away, you can't be here. And it says that that will be checked before they enter the facility. That is the way that the ordinance reads. The current ordinance. And I believe all of the drafts also say that currently. But since you had brought this up at your meeting, I wanted to let you discuss it and kind of give a pro or con, and if you wanted to present that as something that should or shouldn't be in there.
I don't have a problem with the charge by weight thing. It's one of the things that's complex. I don't know if the mood is to allow people who have an active driver's license from the town, from one of the towns, to bypass that, or we just, if you got a borrowed truck, you gotta pay. And again, it's partly, of course, we let Dan go, so. You know, it's partly how much of a hassle is it gonna be, particularly on a Saturday, for the staff. One person will be sitting there running the cash register all day, running the scales, running the cash register. And that's difficult for them, because it's not what they do. You know, they're out every other part of the facility, stacking cardboard.
I would argue it is what they do, but they have a lot of other things to do too.
It's not what they do routinely with their day, I should
Yes.
say. Not that they can't be made responsible for doing it. But, you know, I mean, when I go in the office, there's never anybody in the office because they're out doing something else. I have to chase them down in the demo pile or in the recycling area.
They're certainly always busy, yes.
I think there was concern about also like just a fairness issue that people might not take kindly to having to pay just because they don't have their sticker if they are residents of town. I
Yeah.
think that was discussed.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a resident, you need to get a sticker, but I think if you can prove you're a resident,
If
you
you're
can
borrowing
dispose of
from
trash.
something.
Could they have a proof of their sticker, they had them on their vehicle, on their phone or something? I mean, we sit here, we talk about it, we sound like we're a little bit back in the day.
So,
You better have your car with your sticker in the right spot.
so all of the stickers have like licenses and cars and everything recorded for each sticker. And those lists are supposed to be made available, so they in theory could be looked up as, do you have something on another vehicle? But, yeah,
I feel, I guess I would feel strongly about it. If they're a resident, they just don't have the right vehicle, I don't think they should be charged.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what are we most concerned with, and if it's making sure it's residents, I mean, I guess we can get into like taxpayer status or whatever, but if like generally the concern is making sure it's residents coming in, do we really need to haggle over, you know, I mean, they should get the sticker, and that's the policy, but I guess we can modify to, if you can prove with an ID, then you're allowed to.
I leave it entirely up to you folks to decide what you want to present, because you were discussing it last, and it seemed that you wanted to say that you wanted to deal with that for things like borrowed or company vehicles. And if that's not the case, it's simpler to just leave it out, and if they don't have a sticker, sorry, you can't use the facility. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to explain or try to sell it if that's what you wanted.
My recollection that the consensus at the work session was to check IDs, but not to weigh and charge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
should be landed.
So I believe
Within the
that's-
context of general or a small load versus someone who's bringing a half a house in the back of the
Well, yeah.
That's totally different.
Yeah.
They need to pay the demolition fees.
Okay.
And Dick, what's the, I mean, understanding that at one point, one of the drafts said on the left,
So the original ordinance that we have says on the left, the one that was scanned from 2012.
that's weird. It's weird. I don't know the answer to that.
And I think some of it is we used scanned things to create this through the years, because I think Steve Clow had initially done it, and none of us had an electronic version. which
I mean,
is
at this point, if it's already on both sides, I don't think it really matters one way or the other. I thought it was always left based on the scan, but it's fine.
I was gonna say, I don't have a strong opinion on what side. I mean, I do think it's very.
If it's already being put on the right, it's simpler for them to see it on the right.
Yeah, that was my
so
point.
We might as well just leave it
The
that
new
way.
ones we put on were all on the right, except those few people said. I
We,
don't want
we
it.
should we should probably add does not invalidate previous sticker location or something like that.
Because mine's on.
Yeah.
Mine's 10 years old, so.
Yeah, we've never made anyone move
My-
them, so.
Mine are 3 and 5 years old, and they're both on the left.
Well, you lefties.
Well, mine's
That's
on
right.
3 different.
Okay.
I'd also be willing to bet that on the hierarchy of things that we're asking the
Yeah.
transfer station employees to enforce, what side of the vehicle the sticker's on.
The more important thing is that it's not up in the sunshade part.
Is that
Yeah.
it's actually visible.
Yeah,
Yeah, it has to be visible.
And that was to make it easier for them.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
So,
And they
okay.
put our inspection stickers went to that side.
Right.
Knowing that
which-
people
To the
have
left
been
is
putting on
right.
the right, it's not gonna matter, cause it's still gonna be the same, sometimes overriding, sometimes not with any new system, so my comments of leaving it on the left don't apply, cause it's not left on the left.
Some are, some are.
All right, moving along. I guess we can ignore any changes there, other than making sure that it points at the fee schedule, like was already done in all of those.
Yep.
Article 5, tipping fees. I propose this dramatically be shortened and simplified. To all waste materials brought to the facility for disposal shall be assessed a tipping fee based on the entire weight of materials as indicated on the approved fee schedule, except for residential household trash carried to the hopper by the resident. This is really close to what the existing ordinance and the draft ordinance say. But the 400 pounds mentioned previously seems really arbitrary, and is certainly far more than the average, even large household would normally generate in trash at one time. We can see from the usage graph here that the average is around 800 pounds per year. Removing this limit removes the loophole for subsidization of heavy trash creators while simplifying the ordinance. And if somebody thinks there's better wording for the same purpose, or just thinks that's a bad idea, please suggest it or say so. The wording here is designed to codify that normal residents will continue to just drive up and drop their trash into the hopper without charge, as they currently do. If there's so much of it, or such a weight of it, that it needs to be tipped instead of carried, then it should be charged a tipping fee rather than get free pounds. And before I move to the other portion, I think that's worth discussing. I've heard a couple comments over there tonight about, well, there's this $400 pound versus not, does that make sense? So this is the time.
I always took the 400 pound exemption to be for things like demo. So that if I'm doing the roof on my shed, for example, and I put all the shingles in the back of the truck, but the shingles on the roof of the shed are probably only 250 pounds, then I wouldn't pay a tipping fee for that. I never considered the 400 pound number as residential waste. I considered it for demo, separated wood, shingles, metal, those types of things. And so, just two different interpretations, I guess.
I think it's unusual to give an exemption.
I haven't seen an
Most-
exemption mentioned in any others.
Every other place, if you're bringing demo, you're paying for all the demo.
Right.
Because we're paying for all the demo.
Right.
So what are the thoughts there? Should that new language come into place or something similar to remove the 400 pound free amount of trash? Or should we leave that in? To me, it seems simpler to just charge and not think about it, but there may be a use case that I haven't thought of.
It would certainly be simpler. I'm wondering if it's gonna cause a lot more work for the staff. There are gonna be a lot more weighings, they're gonna have to do things like that.
It'll definitely require education for a lot of contractors in town.
Yeah.
But you probably have to weigh them to know if they're 400 pounds or not anyways. So I'm not sure it's that much more.
I think I would say to agree with your suggestion for purposes of the public hearing, and then, consider what sort of pushback we may get.
That makes
before-
sense.
Before we reach a final decision on what to do.
Okay, that seems to be the consensus for that one. So in the fee section of the old ordinance is section 3, which states all haulers shall adhere to strict separation of wastes as directed by the operator. No loads shall be accepted which are not properly separated. This seems like it should exist, but it's not in the current, either of the current drafts. So what is the reason for removing it?
I don't recall, honestly. Do you know which iteration it was removed?
I've only seen the draft that we saw today and the one that was shown at your work session like a couple weeks ago.
I don't recall where that came out.
So I could not answer that question for you. I didn't see any notes to removal, so it may have been a previous draft that removed it.
Oh, maybe.
I don't have a problem with
It may be another one of those things that didn't transfer over.
Just didn't make
somehow.
it over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with adding it back in, it does make sense. It just-
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it actually made sense or if it made sense to remove it, but it was a difference that was not the usual generic updating to a fee schedule, so I wanted to point it out and not make it an accidental change.
So that was in Article 5,
So,
section.
yeah, Article 5, old section 3. I don't know what the section is in the current one, or if it would still be that or not, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even think it's in this
Yeah, no,
draft
I
that
don't-
we have.
I don't even see it.
Yeah.
it. Should it say haulers? I don't know if that's,
That was the language in the 2012 ordinance.
okay.
So that could certainly be looked at to change, but my goal was just to not remove something accidentally while we're mainly trying to do
To me,
fees.
it's probably more relevant to the contractors in town who are doing renovation jobs and, you know, have some demo and have some metal and have some, and they need to separate it, not just drop it all in one place, but most of them know that.
So maybe it should say all tippers or something of that nature, but. Is the general consensus that we should put it back in or that we should leave it out?
Put it in.
No, I think it should go in,
I
yeah.
think it's fine.
Okay,
Dave, we'll keep that.
all right.
Put it in.
And this would be a spot where we may want to mention recyclables. There was an exception listed in this spot in the original ordinance for this. And that was basically saying, you'll pay all of this except for, was kind of the way that it was phrased when they were doing most of those fees. I don't know if that's needed in the current manner, since we're talking about a fee schedule and charging for specific items, but.
But the fee schedule doesn't have anything about cost for plastic and
Yeah.
paper.
Right.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I agree.
Which moves us to what I believe is the last one for the ordinance, the validity in Article 1. The ordinance should probably state that changes go into effect on the first of the month following passage or include a date such as July 1st. Doing the former would make it not require changes to that section moving forward, but the latter would stick with the existing current format. And this is also where I was planning to talk about process, but we already did that, so.
So the issue with going the first of the month is that if it gets passed on the 17th,
Yeah.
or even the 24th, it's a very short time.
Yeah.
So I'm inclined to say, you know, something like 30 or 45 days after it's passed. So that it still doesn't have to be changed in the future, but there's a education period where the public can be made aware of the changes and the different fees. And the haulers, the commercial haulers, because they're the ones that are gonna go crazy the worst.
How about first of the month, at least 30 days
Yeah.
after passage?
Yeah.
So if we do that, either we can state it that way so this section doesn't really need to be looked at again in the future, or if it's the first of the month, at least 30 days after, that would actually make it August 1st. But these are the things that we need to bring to the public hearing to let them know when it would actually go. Both of those either stating it either way would be the same date. Do we want to simplify that here now, or do we want to keep the existing format so it's got all of the previous dates? We are saying that, like with the previous one, that it rescinds all previous versions, so I don't know that we need the list of all previous versions, drafts, and dates.
I don't think we need the old stuff.
So is the consensus to
I'm not
simplify it
legal.
to the first of the month, at least 30 days after passage?
Like that.
Okay. All right. I have not written down the answers to the ordinance ones, because I've seen Neil scribbling away furiously over there. So I'm sure he will get the quote final version of that to us to be able to bring to the public hearings. We don't have a whole lot of public here. I kind of expected we would have a lot more, like we usually do anytime we talk transfer station. So, is there anything further that you wish to discuss about the fee schedule and the ordinance change here?
I don't have anything.
Thank you for doing
Thank you.
this.
Yeah, great package you put together.
Thank
Yeah.
you. In that case,
Thank you.
I would move to adopt the fee schedule and transfer station ordinance decisions reflected in this joint meeting to be brought to public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need a separate motion, Neil?
It's just kind of a joint meeting, I think that's.
I think we can just say unanimous.
Okay.
Joint board is unanimous. And that concludes this. So thank you very much. I think we've finally made the decisions that we needed to make and can move forward with scheduling public hearings and getting our fees what they need to be.
We could probably open it.
We do have additional items for our select board to cover, but are there other particular hot, important issues for the transfer station that you believe you wish to discuss now, or try to set a meeting to discuss soon?
I think we're good until the public hearings happen, and then
No more
See how
trash
mu-
talk?
we'll see how much hits the fan at that point.
Yes.
Okay, so is the expectation that you will, that we will hold our public hearing as the first one, which is our first meeting, the first Monday of next month? And yours will be your first meeting of next month, the second Monday of next month? And then you will join us again at our meeting on the 3rd of the month to finalize this. Okay?
Yes.
Are those the 10th, the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th? Is that
believe they
right?
are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe so.
yeah, that's 70 times.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Yes, I see that as the 3rd, the 10th, and the 17th. All right.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
coming.
thanks for
And,
having us.
for making
I think
this
we
up.
need to-
We're going into
I think
private
we need to
closed
move
session.
for us to go to non-public now.
Are we in this public?
Yeah.
So,
I move that we have a non-public session under RSA 3A, whatever. What's the number?
L, legal.
Little L.
L legal
okay,
advice.
Stephen?
I have a second.
Okay, all in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call. Jeff?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Ken, yes.
Is that just for your board?
Just for our
Yes.
board, yes.
Okay.
You're gonna be in my truck out there.
He has a beer.
Nobody come close.
Yeah, that boy.
Well, thank you for
Thank
attending.
you, guys.
Thank you
Great,
for
great
helping us get
presentation.
stuff
Thank you
done.
very much.
All right. That moves us on to our old business.
Thank God. Talk to you later.
Okay, I don't know, do you wanna just move the table over? We can grab one of those, or just sit
Or
over
just
there?
have us sit over there.
Here, I
Just so we can see while we talk at us.
You make
Oh, my
sense away from the
My
windows.
God.
Here would be nice.
A
A lot of traffic, a lot of beepers.
The beepers are wonderful.
They are
I
nice.
agree, but it's really hard to hear when people are talking. I have loud beepers.
This is true.
I have no hearing problems anymore.
So, so that moves us on to our old business, which is the Hazard Mitigation Committee.
Well, I said committee, and
a little misnomer. I'm still working on that. I do have a few more members. But one of the things I needed you to re-sign, back in April 15th, you signed the letter of agreement between us and the Regional Planning Commission. At that time, the old agreement was written that the Regional Planning Commission would be managing the grant. The state wanted us to manage the grant, in other words, so that we'll get a bill from regional planning, we'll have to pay it, but we'll also get the check for so one will offset the other. I'm not so sure why that is, but I would like you to sign.
God, you
Long
gotta
way
get your
around.
exercise today there, young man.
You know, if you just sit like this, you might catch it.
Yeah.
Just do little paper airplanes.
Right.
Across the road.
We're just helping him get his steps in.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
So, that's and you signed this agreement back in April.
You just get a little clothesline
So
and
that
just
the old
hook
one.
the
The
documents.
difference
and
is
go
just
away.
stating who does.
Who does,
Which
is the
point?
purpose, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Dee, get that
Thank you.
signature out over there.
Yeah, so we can, one that can be read, where they can be on.
Yeah, the one that can read, we can read. Aw, see? Yeah, proof I was here.
Okay, that's the, there you go,
All
sir.
right.
Thank
You
you.
got anything
That's
else?
No, well, yes, I have lots more.
Oh, you're gonna do a lot of walking, huh?
Just bring the
We
folder
do have a
over.
lot of
Is
signatures.
there more for the hazard mitigation?
No.
No.
Okay. Is there further old business to discuss that is not mentioned on the agenda?
I don't believe we
I don't believe we do.
Okay, so the next.
We have a
item-
few things that are coming up to you in the correspondence.
So the next item is new business, an annual appointment of the building inspector.
Yeah, well, normally we do that after town meeting, but it slipped this year. So we just, if the board would like to reappoint Tom Bay as the building inspector, should they choose to.
Is he?
Is there a lineup?
Yeah, right, yeah, do you have
Is there other
to beat
people?
off,
Is he
beat
amenable
off with
to
a
that?
stick or what?
He hasn't told me he doesn't wanna do it.
Okay, so let's
And
send,
he's been doing it, so.
right.
We're
Well,
not planning to ask him.
And again, is there a line?
Okay.
Yeah, right, oh, yeah, out the
You wanna make a
door.
motion?
See, I'll make a motion to sign Tom back up without him knowing.
Second emotion,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
That's easy. Man, that first agenda item was a doozy, but these other ones are real quick.
We're getting through these, yeah.
Go. All right, that moves us to correspondence.
Okay, I'll be right with
See, you
you.
could've brought that folder with you.
I know, but I'm having more fun going back.
There you go, sir.
He gets to pretend
He
we're a
loves his
really
folders.
large town now, because he's gotta go all the way across.
That's
the-
right.
Now I might be, it's gone Berkeley.
Okay.
Sorry, no, that was a lot of trash talk.
Yes, it was.
Oh, my
Yes, I
Lord.
was, I was just gonna say the same thing, man, that
You
was
are
a
a
long
good guy.
meeting.
That was a lot of
But
work.
we did it and we got full consensus.
Yeah, no, you did, listen, I don't know,
And they've been trying to do that since 2012.
that a boy,
So we have a couple things in the consent agenda
correspondence.
correspondence agenda. One is the notice for Pillsbury Lake, and I think this is the second one this year, of their weeding policy, which has been approved by DES. The other, Russ, do you wanna talk about the other one?
The other one was for one of our code enforcement complaints. The person sent a note to the board because they say they work, so they can't come to a board meeting to discuss it with you. But this is their response, and I'm paying that to you, so you can look at it. Now I get to walk.
I know.
Sweet.
And I am asking if the board still wants me to move forward with the enforcement action. Because they do get an opportunity to say something.
Down here.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, was it?
You could've been a-
Oh, okay.
Nice, Russ.
I know, sorry.
But it's a pad, he's still like.
And I'll mention that, from my understanding with the way driveways work, it's where the vehicles come in and off of the road
Yeah,
is where this constitutes the access point. So if the vehicle's coming in and off the road to get to the trailer from the road, that would be the access.
Where are we again?
so it's a big
This
wide
is
driveway.
Up on Battle Street.
Not where they just did, not, okay, I'll read it again.
Can you remind us of some, or remind me of some of the circumstances
Oh,
on
good,
this?
thank
'Cause
God.
The way that this is worded, it sounds somewhat reasonable, but at the same time, it doesn't really make sense to what I would expect an enforcement to be in the first
I think a
place.
picture shows 1,000 words. If I had
Yes.
the pictures with me, I could show you. But if you wanna come down to the office after, I can show you a picture of what the lot looks like. Or I can go and grab that now if you would like.
I think in order to do it in public session, I think it makes sense to have the picture.
One
Do
second.
you have
Dana.
another item for us in correspondence, or do we move forward?
I do.
Dana can continue that.
Okay.
If you-
Thank you very much.
Cause
It's a
I feel
different
like
item.
you do, but I
Yeah.
was trying to recover any memory that might have been in
Yeah.
there. And apparently it's not.
It,
Before you
it
make
sounds
it.
like it's too much next to the road, but they're saying it's not next to the road, but it's actually next to the road, but they're not using it next to the road, and so, like, it's.
It's
we'll see.
perception,
Yeah,
it's
we'll
perception.
see.
Mine is really, probably should have been old business. Brenda is here and
Poor
she
Brenda
is-
had to sit here through this whole thing.
okay.
We still
I
have
have
this
nothing
problem
else to
that we
do.
discussed
Oh.
last
Nope,
time. Marlo
nothing.
wasn't here with the dangerous trees at the river, is it?
Riverdale.
Riverdale Cemetery. Emmett has gone and gotten an estimate for a crane to come in
Yep,
and to remove the tree.
there's,
And I don't have that quote that he got, but it was what, 9,500?
yeah,
Something like that. Usually we get more than one quote, but that's,
Who's doing it, do you know?
Justin Dearborn.
Oh, okay, good.
I
Well,
think-
did we ask Eric Gay or anything? Cause I'm thinking of people that can like climb up the tree instead of using a crane and just cut, I don't know if that's.
It's too dangerous of a tree.
Well, and they
Oh,
work,
okay.
and they work together kind of as a team
They-
a lot
they
of
do.
times, yeah,
They
so they.
do.
Oh,
it would be
Eric
the-
does too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the tree is, and
Bad.
if we don't get it done, Emmett has gone so far as to schedule them to get there, because if we don't get it done, he's gonna shut the cemetery down. And nobody will be able to go in there, because it's that scary.
Yeah, wow, wow.
It's a huge, huge pine, and it's split from the top right down to the
It's
bottom.
probably all rotten in the middle too.
And if it falls, my biggest concern is it's gonna ruin the stones.
Well, that's what I would be worried about.
Yeah,
So where
right.
would that money come from?
I guess we had talked about that last time, and we have a couple of options. We could take it from the contingency. We could, take it from the town property maintenance. I think that's an EFT, which would cover, that's a very broad, thing, but, so those are a couple of options of where we could get that money.
And when can Justin do it?
Emma scheduled him for the 1st of June, right around the first week.
Yeah, cause I know they're out.
Well, he
quite a bit.
was booked, but he said he could rearrange some things just so we wouldn't have to shut it down. Cause if we get a storm,
Yeah, cause it's,
I mean, it might stay up there for another
Well, you can see
10
where
years.
with the storm.
Yeah.
just like
I
the
don't know
tree
if
in
that
my
really
house,
helps
all of a
either.
sudden it came crashing down part of it, it's like, holy mackerel.
Replace the stand.
No,
Fine.
no, it doesn't,
I mean,
exactly, that's what
So
I would
much
be
that.
concerned. Yeah.
Luckily, nobody, I just heard the
So
neighbor
you-
was just
are
going
you-
by 25 seconds before
And
that
then
tree
could
went
try to
down.
get another number.
Yeah, so the
That's
main things
scary.
that we covered last time at our meeting when you were out was some of the ways that we could possibly come up with it and where the funding could come from.
Which sounds like a figure out.
And the and getting multiple quotes, because at the time, we were told things like maybe 10,000 for just a tree, but, 30,000 or so for the ones that we wanna do. And is this only to cover the one, or is this to cover the row, or a couple of bad
It's
ones?
it's gonna cover 3, 4, 6 trees.
Will
And
there
they
be
crane
any-
them down and then who cleans them up?
They do
they
all
will.
of it.
He's gonna,
Yeah,
well, I know sometimes he says that, I know they take them down and then they get it
Yeah.
repaired and then they.
Brenda, does that take care of all, we talked last time about several trees?
There are several more, but the ones that are in the back can wait. We'll put that in our budget for next year. I mean, that can wait. They're not hazardous or,
Would those also need the same cleaning, or would those be more conventional, so less expensive?
it depends. They probably won't need the crane,
Okay,
so.
If this
they-
one's a
they could
land them,
just-
yeah.
do what you need to do to them.
Yeah.
I got pictures. This is what it was in August of '23, and this is what it is currently. It's the next page,
August of 23.
and that's what this is.
So for the trees, what are we looking for or needing to decide? Is it, do we just say yes, do we ask for more quotes, like what are you looking for?
Well, normally, we would have more than one quote.
If it's over 10,000, right, Dana?
Well, over 10,000, it has to go
It has to
to
go
a
for
formal
It
bid.
has to have either 3 quotes
Yeah.
or
But
open bid.
normally, we would get more than just one quote, but I'm concerned about the tree.
Well, and right
And-
now, what
and
are
I
we?
think that-
May, yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
you're
We're
not
yeah.
gonna
always
get
against
anybody
the
to come
time
in.
frame of someone fitting us into this schedule.
Yeah, no, if you can get him to come that time,
Right.
unfortunately.
Okay, so what do you need from us?
I guess I just need a consensus from you for us to go forward, and when we give you a bill, you won't be surprised.
Okay,
you know?
I'm all ready.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask about the tree in the park. Did he look at that one?
No.
No, okay.
I'll have to get, I will work on that
All
and
right,
get
okay.
some quotes and,
All right, I just want to make sure that,
as I was down there yesterday working, I was looking at it. I don't think it's that
There's one
dangerous.
on the back too.
okay.
Um,
Oh, that's just
yeah, if we
Yeah,
get a
I mean, it's a
wind,
big old pine.
yeah, if we
yeah.
get a windstorm, yeah,
That's the
we might get some
23.
branches
Yeah.
down
Oh,
or
yeah.
something, but
Yeah.
in
I
color.
think
So
it's
this is the way it
okay.
used to be, with just the little access path.
Yeah,
And this is how it is now, with the entire thing being used as driveway, with trucks parked in it and everything. I think that's fairly clear cut, because they're using this driveway. Which definitely has full access onto the road and is the full cut.
oh boy,
Because it's the full width,
I know, but,
so.
I mean, it almost, to
I
me,
mean,
almost
everything-
falls into like a landscaping situation, but.
Well, if they were landscaping instead of obviously using it as a driveway with their trucks and trailers,
Yeah, well, meaning you could, you know,
because they're obviously
Maybe do you
pulling in
wanna
and out and
discuss
using
the
the whole
stones?
entrance.
Yeah, that's
So
my
the
next
whole
subject.
width is being used as a driveway.
I'm not in a hurry to get out of here or anything.
You just stay
Yes,
here,
you are.
Brenda.
Yes,
To
you
me,
are.
I think that's fairly clear cut, as should continue, but.
Thank you.
So we should continue
What
with
is the
enforcement.
rest of the board thinking?
Yeah. Should we get him in, can we get him in here? That guy?
Apparently, he wrote the letter saying that he couldn't make it.
Oh, he
That's
can't
why
make it.
That's why he provided that as a group.
Oh, okay, he couldn't make it.
Right.
so what would we require him just to put grass back there?
I've already brought up those ideas.
You know, because that's why I get what you're saying, but I look at it as too, is you can back in and go like that, but just because he decides that that's all grass, I don't know, that's my only problem with it. It doesn't look, the purpose is probably there, but to me, it's almost like, well,
Well, and the
then we're gonna
photos-
just ask him to
The photos show that
landscape.
they're currently using it that way.
Yeah,
So it would be remove the road access section.
right. But you know what I mean, if you got
Yeah.
here, you could back your you know, you can back, you know,
Right.
you could even back it to that, so is it that this space right here that needs to be like put lawn or filled
But
back
that
in?
currently has trucks and stuff parked in it according to the photos. So
Why?
it's like this is, they've got a truck parked here that
Right.
obviously just put in.
Right.
So they're obviously using more than the original driveway width. They've obviously created additional driveway space.
I just think we're just gonna have to tell them what they'll need to do to not, cause to me, that they would just need
Yeah,
to put
something would
lawn,
need to be
grass back
there.
or.
I don't know the answer. What is the process for that? Like deciding what the mitigation would be
Well,
if they decide
generally, if
to
the
do so?
owner is amiable to closing it, then that is something I would have them discuss with the road agent and the planning board of what the solution would look like. But the owner in this situation is not amiable to closing it.
Okay.
So what, he'd have to go into the front of the,
Next is the town attorney.
Mhm. Well, did they ever come to the planning board with a new or updated
Well, this is, once
driveway
again,
permit?
this is on a state road too.
But so do we have any evidence that they've gone to either the state or
I
us
called the
for an
state, they
updated-
did not.
Okay, so they have not gone for an updated permit for their change in the driveway,
Correct.
okay? Well,
So does that,
Pretty clear
because
cut.
it's on a state road, does the state have to give them permission to do that?
They get to
Because-
get both permission.
right.
Both from,
Yes,
both of
remember
them?
we
Right,
decided.
and our
that-
regulations is you can only have one cut per 250 feet.
Yeah,
And that is the issue that is here.
What is our, how wide can it be?
I think, if I remember correctly, it's 12 to 16 feet.
And
That's
and
just
how,
off the
and
top
what
of my
is,
head.
what is that, do you know? How wide, how much is open there?
I'm not sure, I didn't measure it.
it looked to be about 3 vehicles wide, so let me guess 30-ish.
So I just need to have to figure out how to cut that and bring it back,
Right.
cut in half.
So generally, the hope is that the person would be amicable to fixing the problem, but if they're not, then it would go to the attorney after that.
Yeah, if they wanted to try to work and figure stuff out, then that would have been awesome. But since they're not and they didn't do the process correctly in the first place, I don't see that we have much of any choice.
no, you're right, because one will lead to lots more, and then it'd be a lot of trouble.
So, do we need a motion on that, or?
You already gave me the motion to go to the attorney.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure if the person responded, that I brought their response to the board, so you at least have the opportunity to look at it.
Mhm.
Should you give one more shout out?
I am gonna give them one more
Just
shout
give one
out.
more shout and say, hey, we really gonna do something, or this is where it's going.
All right.
I have one more item, which involves Brenda again.
Man,
Full of it
you're a
tonight.
troublemaker.
Brenda had brought you, and discussed about repairing of cemetery stones. And she had a fairly attractive quote from, there aren't many people that fix the cemetery stones. So she had a quote, and Brenda, what was it, 11,500?
Yeah, but it
Um,
may not be that much, because he included the Bosquen side of Beaver Dam,
Oh, okay.
so it's not gonna be that much.
Okay, so we're not gonna do that,
Yeah.
those,
No, we're not giving them a break, that's for
Fine.
sure.
So maybe 10,000.
Now, we do have sufficient funds in the cemetery EFT for that. We
Is
had
that the
talked
one we can or
about,
can't use?
that one we can use.
Okay.
The other one, the cemetery trust fund itself, is the one that we would need a special blessing from, I guess it's the Department of Justice. And I've been working with John on that, and it's a very unusual thing, even he wasn't really familiar with it, so he's getting more familiar with it. That trust fund was started in 1916, and people, obviously when they bought plots, would put the money in. The law is you can't take it out, but the huge interest that's earned goes toward the cemetery. And I think last year, the
I think it was
huge interest was
$69.
$80 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
$69 or
Big time.
something, yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to mention the stones.
What
Me-
other, what would the, what would that money be used for? besides repairing stones?
It was originally put in there for perpetual care,
Okay.
but we can never use it unless we go through all this legal stuff and they say yes.
Yeah, so when you do something along these lines with something that's designed to be perpetual, you can't ever touch it, and the interest is supposed to be doing the maintenance and the upkeep. The problem is that $60 worth doesn't do much of any maintenance or upkeep.
Doesn't even buy dinner.
When is the last time this had something put into it? Because normally.
It hasn't, because I discourage people from putting into it.
You can't
Because
touch it.
normally, if something like this exists, it would be like every time someone buys a plot, X amount must go into it to do that.
When they buy the plot, we put 200 in the land sale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where does the 50 go?
You know, I'm not sure.
I'll have to look it up.
I'm not sure, I don't know.
I
But,
was
yeah,
just reading that the
yeah,
other day. I don't remember.
Yeah,
yeah.
normally, if
But I
this
don't
is
think
being
we've had
used,
money
that would be-
go into the trust
Okay.
No, we haven't.
for a while.
No,
Yeah.
because I discourage people, if they ask me about perpetual care, I discourage them.
So you can sell a lot without perpetual care, and then you just mow around that person? Is that how you do it?
It's not included in the lot when we sell it.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
Can I ask you
Somebody
something?
wants me to get going about that anyways.
Can you bury yourself, I mean, can you be buried on property in Webster, your own
Yes.
property?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can?
Yeah,
Oh,
you have
that's
to go
inter-
through the state, but you can do it.
It's what?
You have to go through the state.
Oh, state,
I
oh.
know Abby Rockefeller's got a lot, and Betsy Janeway, Taylor's,
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
they have their own little.
that's right, because his parents are on his property, I remember that.
Yep.
Hmm.
Well, so I don't see
So
why
I
we
would like
do
to
that.
use the money in the trust
Yeah.
fund for now, and then next year we can ask for 10,000 to replenish that.
Yeah, that's good.
Because we used to get Perry Brothers to do it, and they just have gotten so big, and they just can't do it anymore. And I've looked for people to do it, and there is nobody.
Did
Wow.
we set money aside to be put into that this last year?
No,
Okay,
no, we didn't.
so it was deemed that it was an acceptable amount to handle things like this, so.
How much is in there right now?
A little over 11,000.
Yeah.
And you need about 8 or 9 of it.
Well, I think there might be some in my budget for this year. I don't know, I'll have to look.
So I guess we need from you what the total would be, and then probably some of it would come out of your budget.
Yeah,
If we
So
yeah.
how'd you get somebody to, do you know somebody that will fix them?
I saw his ad in the paper.
Oh,
That's why you should read the paper.
So,
He come
I
out-
do read the paper, not so much.
He
cemetery.
came out and gave me a quote for the 3 cemeteries, and
Oh,
Course of Hill alone is over 60 stones.
over
They're
60,000?
either fallen or broken, and he will take care of them all.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
wow.
so I would suggest that since we have the money in the cemetery fund, and this is exactly what that would be used for, that we do that.
Okay, when we have the bill, if you want us to go forward with this, I'm going to come to you and ask for a motion to withdraw it. That's
Yeah, okay.
what we'll
Perfect.
have.
Go ahead, right now, we're agreeing to that.
So,
We'll see about it when we get there.
so we'll tell Brenda to go forward, so if you don't agree to do that, then we'll have to break the stones and put them back the way they
I think he requests like half down or something like that.
If you can give me an invoice,
Okay.
we can take care of that.
Okay, okay,
Thanks for doing
Thank you
Yes,
very
very
much.
much.
it's gotta be done.
that. Yeah, right.
You know, putting flags out yesterday or
Oh, you did
Sunday,
put the,
put flags out and seeing all those stones down, it's a
I
disgrace.
know,
Yeah.
I know.
And there's no families to take care of them
That's-
anymore.
That's the trouble, yeah,
They have
you're
to take
right.
care of them.
Do you have a lot of
Thank you.
problems with discolored stones?
Huh?
Do you have a lot of problem with discolored stones?
Yeah, especially the marble ones. Yeah,
I
the old-
noticed
old
in
ones.
Temple yesterday, the stones are really, including my parents and grandparents, they've turned really an awful color. I was gonna call and see how we could clean it, but a lot of the, what is it, acid rain or something?
I don't know what you'd
But
clean it
sometimes,
with.
yeah.
It's awful,
Just maybe take a fine wire brush or something.
maybe, yeah.
Get a
Anyway,
big granite
that's all I
rock.
need from you.
All right, see you,
Thank
Brenda.
you very
Thank
much.
you. Sorry you had to wait so long.
That's okay.
She loved our trash talk.
She's just gonna tell everybody how garbage this meeting was.
I feel like we're like on News 9. We gotta come up with little puns.
Okay, do we have further correspondence?
That is all the correspondence I have.
Seeing no public, we don't have public comment. Is there any further business before we go into meetings and motions?
We have the minutes to be approved.
Yeah,
And we
that's
also
here.
have a few signed things, and I wanted to just mention to you, one of these is the warrant for the taxes to be sent.
You're on time.
Yeah, Boston's ahead of you. I got my bill from over there.
Oh, well,
You know, for one time where I think we're ahead of.
we think we're being so good, and then someone comes up.
And they said it on Saturday night.
Now, wait a minute, you said Bosquen? That's because they got everybody and their uncle has somebody to help them. There's not, there's this one underneath
the
this
timber
one,
in there as
underneath this
well?
one.
Yeah,
And we got some timber bills
That's
too.
because my cousin's a selectman too.
so this is a warrant for $2,814,000.
Oh, giving it to me?
And this is the back. See one?
Are you gonna argue with that?
Thank you for all the work, Karen.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, I don't know, the 50 cents. Oh, no, that's $750. There's no
Boy,
sense
I
on
want
that.
you to start reading those things.
I mean, if you're gonna make my property tax 50 cents, I'm down with it.
Just say, I don't, yeah.
Now that you've done that for Karen,
Oh, wait,
you've got
what's
some
this?
more
That's-
campers.
See, we have to make money to give money back.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, does that go with this thing? What
It
is
goes
it?
with here,
Oh, thank you.
and you signed, okay.
Yes, I did sign it. That's why I was wondering, what am I get this for?
Okay, now this, Russ has some timber,
3 timber bills.
3 timber bills. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I got 4.
Is there 4? I might be 4.
Okay.
Is it 4 or is it just additional copies? Because we normally sign 2 of each.
No, I think this is some.
No, it
this
might
is
be 4.
Fred Corsa Family Trust, and then that's Tim, so, okay,
Yeah, it's 4.
yeah, it's 4.
That's for you. I don't know where the other part is, or isn't there a part?
So I will let our timber expert look this over.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm having an issue with a little account thing, but.
I can't believe it.
Can't believe what?
Shoot that into.
Oh, never.
Why don't you go back over there?
Go
and
away.
say,
I'm leaving soon.
On a jet plane.
She's gonna sing for you now. You're leaving on a jet plane.
Hey, now, we don't need to recycle our comments.
Okay, sign in those couple places. We're gonna go into, oh, this is the, see, this I'm surprised they don't try to have this fall under.
Are you talking
Personal
about,
use.
are you talking about the 8 cords?
That's ridiculous.
No, they submitted it, so.
We should be, yeah, that should be 0, but whatever. That's when there's more paper,
$10.64.
that's what that minimum
agree.
thing, well, even minimum is supposed to be, because that costs this town more money than that $10
Yeah.
to what you have to go through to get to there.
Oh, wow.
So,
She needs to sign that one. She only signed the other part of it.
okay.
Oh, what did I do? What did you
Yes,
tell
right
me?
here, I didn't.
There's 2 per packet to sign.
Oh,
A lot of these are small.
Where do you send, why do you have, you said you keep one for your records,
I
right?
keep one for me,
And then
one
where do
goes to
you,
Karen,
And
For
both
her
of them are
records.
originals.
and I like to keep the original just because sometimes the
Oh,
DRA
that's
asks me for it again.
do they?
did I do this one
Yeah.
too?
Because, yeah, we had a town to $400 1,000 on the pine. You hardly get that when you take it to the mill.
Yeah.
So
Really?
the woman's tax bill, instead of being around $3,500, came back at $6,700.
Jeez.
So I just didn't know, like,
Your
you don't
day,
see
that's
that very
pretty old.
often,
That's
because
pretty-
everybody
I
follows
usually-
the rules.
I follow the rules, and then I write down on the front page, the dates I took the values off of the website, so people know.
And what do you do, take the average between the high and the low?
I think it depends on what the timber assessment sheet is.
Yeah, I'm just showing, is that, I know most of what happens, but like, again, this is such a small amount.
Yeah,
This should be on the lower side,
Those are
because the
those.
size of the sale is so
Sir.
small.
Right.
They're lucky that they don't get charged to have their tree cut.
yeah. Well, they do.
But they're doing it themselves.
Right.
That's why.
So
Yeah,
that
they're
was
being-
kind of one of those, I was surprised they submitted that one, too, as a cut instead of a no cut. Or they just said they cut for personal use, but, like I said, they submitted it, so I filed the paperwork.
Right.
And everything was on time this year, this is the one year I was almost a little nervous, a little bit.
What did they give you for the exact deadline? Isn't it June 1st?
They say it was, I think it's the 15th,
Um,
it's May 15th.
All right, that one is all done.
But I have never had to go to the DRA and say I didn't get one back, so I'm kinda happy with that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah, right.
Where it says range difference, that is the number you're using? What does the range difference mean? Oh, and then you times it by the 33, put the .33, which is what is the rating on the sheet.
Yeah, I put the, whatever is in the formulas was set by the DRA, I just punched the numbers in.
Meaning the high and the low for central.
Yeah. So I
See,
go
in
to
this
the-
one right here, with the law that's just gonna be passed,
Yeah,
would fall under not even having to file an intent.
yep,
Well, they just passed another new law?
Yeah, well, because again, it's all paperwork. So in this case, this gentleman didn't get paid for his trees.
yeah,
And in some cases, he would have to pay to have this cut.
yeah.
So now he's paying a small $500 tax that he
So,
didn't get
so
anything
if
from.
somebody cuts like a couple of trees from mine, do they have to pay, to fill this stuff out too?
No.
No.
No, it's gonna be around the 15 to 30,000 mark
Oh, okay.
of where, all depending on what material's coming off. And I just wish they would take that into consideration, because if you're gonna come in and log, your equipment costs so much money, you've
Oh,
gotta be
yeah.
a certain amount of material there.
Right.
And then if you
to
make a
cover the
road to
cost.
go, then you make a road.
That's right,
this Dave has to
landings.
fill, Dave has to fill that
Yes,
one
you
out.
are correct.
Yeah, right, then you gotta make the road and all that stuff.
Which is why one of those has
Skidders?
very low on the assessment because of the way the person logged it.
Ah,
Well, and there again, that's us all, that's filling out a pretty interesting piece of paper,
Yeah, it was.
right? Because what is considered average?
Right, and that's kind of what I have to sit there.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm chatting, not paying attention.
I'm gonna make Russell do this next time.
You could have made me do it this time.
I should have.
hey,
But that was a lot of them. We don't usually get this many in one night.
that's for you, Dave.
It's been an amazing process. Papers going back and forth.
Here you go, Dave. Oh, I don't think I signed that.
Wow. I'm not looking at this, this is why I'm not in charge at work when I have to sign things.
It's way in the middle.
She's like, Marlo!
My signature's getting better.
Let's go back and look.
Oh, yeah, Dave has to, I think Dave has to sign that.
Yep.
I think that'll be the last of them.
Mhm. know, sometimes when it's late at night, you get the old.
Yeah, I know.
I've gotten through that. I was getting the old.
Thank you. And finally, I have,
$1 million.
would like you to sign the warrant. Money came out of the checking account to pay the electric bills this month.
Oh, I thought you were giving us $1 million.
Oh,
Oh, I would if I had it.
I know you.
If I had it, you'd be the first.
Oh,
one.
yes. And of the wonderfulness of two things that we will now see here, based on these, you can see that, oh, no, we can't, because these are the low price. Never mind. I was gonna say we could actually see that we're finally getting credits on the bill appropriately.
I knew
but,
where you were headed, but what happened?
Well-
What road you go down anyways?
One of
Well,
those,
these don't include either of our actual bills for like here in the safety.
You know-
one of those will show it, let me show it to you when you're.
Well, it'll show the credits on it.
You
for
know,
the
Dave, I
salaries,
really
but-
appreciate your shirt. You really look springy.
Thank you.
That's very nice. All right, what am I supposed to know about this?
This is just a little bit of a.
Oh.
Hey.
Oh,
Couple sparks.
I figured if we were gonna talk about so much trash, I
That's
should
it,
really
one-
try
just
to
one
get
side?
through.
Yeah, you're right.
you were Why is it? Because
Well.
he's Mr. Spring.
It's a spring, all right.
You gotta put a spring in people's steps somehow, hopefully with laughter.
I wonder if they even got that.
Probably not.
No, well, I didn't until we got talking about it.
But it is, it's a neat color for
Okay.
him, too.
Yes, it is.
So has
Very
everybody
professional.
been able to see the, sorry, did we have other correspondence?
Fortunately, no.
Okay. So has everybody been able to see the minutes?
Yes,
And there.
and I excused myself on some of it.
And, yes, so there were the minutes from when you were here, which we waited on, so that you could weigh in on them. And then there are the ones from you not being here, which I believe was the 6th.
May
one?
6th.
May
Yes, it was.
Sixth.
I was trotting around
Yeah,
Italy.
we did.
Oh, good.
May
Yeah.
6th.
So,
It's hard to remember.
I'll separate those into, did you have any questions, comments, or replacements or fixes for 415s? Which is when Marlo was here.
I do not, myself.
No,
All
I
right.
think they look good.
All right, then I would move to accept the minutes from 415 as written.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we will move on to 5-6, where we had the meeting and the non-public sessions. Did you see anything to comment on it or correct in those?
Nope, looks good to me.
this is the non-public, you said, okay?
Mhm. Okay, and so I would move that we accept the meeting minutes from 5-6, including the 2 non-public sessions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now, before we move on to other things, we did go through the minutes to decide what we wanted to unseal in the work session, and we have that list. We also, however, have the meeting minutes included for the 2 sessions on May 6th that we just had, based on the way that they were written, and seeming to be okay. Does the board want to include those in unsealing as well, or no?
That was the day I wasn't here.
Yes, but the
Amazing.
minutes were in our,
Well, you were here at the meeting last week as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. I just
Were
don't
those
like.
supposed
Someone that looked a lot like
were
you.
those supposed to be the 16th instead of the 6th, right?
Um,
Or, sorry, the.
Well, the 2 non-publics that we added were the 6th, which Marlo is not, wasn't
Yeah,
here
right.
then. But the date we met was the 16th.
Right. And I was present for that.
Yeah, so we did not look over those from the 6th, but, previously, but Dana sent those out. I guess I will simply open those up again, in case you haven't seen them. This was regarding, one was regarding
PSNH.
Clothespin Bridge, and the other was regarding PSNH.
I don't think there's
I
any.
believe neither of them has information in it that needs to remain sealed. They were sealed in case they were written in a way that could.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I second that.
Okay.
Yep.
So in that case, I will include those in the following motion. And I would move to unseal the non-public select board minutes that had previously been sealed from July 16th, 2018, February 7th, 2022, February 22nd, 2022, April 18th, 2022, October 16th, 2023, November 6th, 2023, March 4, 2024, sessions 1 through 3, and May 6th, sessions 1 and 2, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
God, the next board's gonna be.
That does leave a few meeting minutes sealed, as we determined should be. And of course, this is a process that is normally gone through annually for at least the previous year's worth. We just had a few that we wanted to also go through at that time. Okay. Is there anything further for motions or signatures?
No,
I believe you mentioned something about wanting a non-public.
I would like to have a non-public under 9(1)A, section 3, section 2L, legal.
I move that we enter non-public session at 8:55 under legal.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for joining us. As per the usual, we will exit non-public and then immediately exit public session, so there will not be a resumption of the stream or recording.
Couldn't you put that closer?